All right. Thanks, everybody. Hi, by the way. Hi, everybody. And thanks for giving up your evenings this evening. I'm going to hand over very quickly to Otti, Sana, and Sara, who've been, well, they'll tell you how long they've been using the course and what the situation is in each school. But just to say thanks, guys. Thanks, Otti, Sana, Sara, for doing this and for sharing what you found out so far. And, you know, as we're saying earlier, please just do be completely honest with how things have gone. And everybody, you know, watching in, Otti will go first for about 15-20 minutes, and then we'll do questions on for you, Otti, at the end of your session, and then we'll go to Sana and questions on Sana's afterwards, and then similarly to Sara, if that's okay. And if you want to put questions and so on in the chat as we go, feel free. Okay, Otti, thanks very much, and over to you.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Otti, and I am a head of classics at Rooks Heath School. Let me just do this magic trick where I'm going to share my screen. We have practiced this, so it should work. Okay, so I'm going to tell you this evening a little bit about the experience that we've had at Rooks Heath School in teaching with Subarani. I will start by telling you a little bit about our school first. So Rooks Heath is a state comp school in South Harrow. We teach students from 11 years of age to 18 years of age, so from year 7 all the way to year 13. And Latin is taught at all key stages, and Greek as well, actually, key stage 3, 4, and 5. We're an 8th form entry, where there's around 200 students in each year group, a little bit more at the moment, about 210 in year 7 and 8. But yes, around 200 students in each year group at key stage 3 and key stage 4. So it's quite a big school. Latin has been taught at Rooks Heath since 1974, so actually for quite a long time. However, all the way until 2015, it was a one-person department. So there was one Latin teacher who taught everyone Latin. In 2015, it became a two-person department. And then from 2016 to 2020, that's when I joined in 2016, we became a 3-people department, and at present there are 5 of us actually. So we have grown as a department, and students have enjoyed Latin and taken it up more and more, and that allowed us to hire 2 new Latin teachers last year, which was really, really nice. So the context of Latin in our school is that all of our students study Latin in year 7 for 3 hours per fortnight, and alongside French or German. So half of the year group, so 4 of the forms will do Latin and German, and 4 of the other forms will do Latin and French. In year 8, they then continue with 2 languages. They must continue 1 language studied in year 7. So if they were doing Latin and French, they can then do Latin and German, or Latin and Mandarin, or they can drop Latin and do French and Mandarin, but they must continue with 1 language that they're doing in year 7, which is quite an advantage for us because all of them do Latin, and if they enjoy it in year 7, then it's likely that they'll pick it in year 8. And then they pick 1 language in year 9, they can pick 2 if they want to, and then they must do 1 language for the GCSE as part of their EBAC. It was really successful last year, which was also incidentally our first year of Subarani, because out of about 200 students in year 7, 125 of them actually picked Latin as one of their languages for the following year, which was really, really good for us as a department. As I was saying, in year 9, they then must do at least 1 language from the ones they have studied, and they can also start ancient Greek, and they have to do at least 1 language for GCSE, except for really rare exceptions. And yes, that is it. At the moment, we have about 3 year 9 classes for Latin and 1 for ancient Greek, which is very nice. And actually 3 year 10 for Latin and 1 ancient Greek. So it's actually been quite a good couple of years for the classics department. So why did we move to Suburani? And I think that's what you came here tonight to hear. So when I joined Rooks Heath, the Cambridge Latin course was being used at both Key Stage 3 and Key Stage 4. And students then were still sitting the old WJC level 1 and 2. When my former head of department took over the department, we moved to OCR as an exam board for GCSE. We decided to keep Cambridge Latin course at Key Stage 3 up to Book 2, and then we moved to John Taylor Latin to GCSE for Key Stage 4. However, after the first cohort went through to GCSE with John Taylor, the results were okay, but the language side of things was really, really hard for our students, and we have very mixed ability classes. So we decided to switch to Educast, where the language paper is a bit more accessible for all ability students, and kept Cambridge Latin course for Key Stage 3, and then adapted Latin to GCSE for Key Stage 4. So we got to a point after about 3 or 4 years that I joined the school, where with the Cambridge Latin course, we had years of planning it, years before me as well. And at a point of, we had reviewed resources to make them to a very, very good standard. I would say that our Year 7 curriculum was really quite almost outstanding using the Cambridge Latin course. Students were making really good progress. The resources were accessible for all students. We had differentiation left, right, and centre. However, well, Subarani then came about, and we thought, should we switch? Should we not switch? It's taken us forever to plan all of these Cambridge Latin course resources. All of us were just a bit tired of teaching Cambridge Latin course. We weren't sure how to make it alive anymore. It felt a bit outdated, you know, with Caecilius with his big villa and all of his slaves and people buying slaves all the time. It just, you know, it didn't resonate with, the students didn't resonate with the characters and the story. They couldn't empathize with Caecilius or with Metella getting angry with Melissa. And teachers were really struggling to make the resources come to life. So after, you know, 3 years of teaching the same lesson, how do we make, you know, the stories in stage 3 of Cambridge Latin course fun? You can't anymore. So Subarani for us came at a perfect time. And mostly when we got our first sample, we were captivated by the story and the characters, which is so much more relevant in our context. You know, the fact that Sabina is a girl who lives with her father in a block of flats. So many of our students live in big blocks of flats, in small flats, that they can identify with Sabina in that situation. Sabina has a dad, but doesn't have a mom. How many of our students can identify with that situation, you know, of a family that is not your traditional family? So yes, we were immediately really captivated by Suburani. We planned, so this is last academic year, a brand new curriculum for Year 7, and so we decided to phase out both Cambridge Latin course and Latin to GCSE. So we have decided to teach Subarani all the way up to Year 11. So it's still a work in progress. We now have a full curriculum for Year 7, a full curriculum for Year 8. The Year 9 one is incoming, and so each year we'll plan for a new year. I have to give here massive credit to my former head of department, an amazing colleague, Stu McCauley, who is the one who came to me with the idea of switching to Subarani and has taken on quite a lot of the planning for it. Yes, so thank you, Stu, so much. It's been great. So something else that you might want to hear about if you're thinking of switching to Subarani, or you have to switch to Subarani, is how much we get through. And I can really tell you from Year 7 and 8 for us, we have 3 lessons per fortnight in Year 7 and Year 8. So that's 1.5 hours of Latin per week. In Year 7, we cover chapters 1 to 5. And in Year 8, we cover chapters 6 to 10. This is just really an indication, because in our school, we have 1 hour lessons. But like I said, especially at Key Stage 3, our class sizes are quite big and very mixed ability. So we don't want to take it too fast, not too slow, but also not too fast. And that's probably the reason why we cover, you know, only 5 chapters in a year. But it felt like the right pace for us. In last academic year, as you all know, with the lockdowns, etc., we actually had originally planned to get all the way to chapter 6 in Year 7, because then the Year 8 would make a nice start in Britain with chapter 7. However, we just didn't manage to get there with lockdown. And so we just decided that this would be, the best thing to do for us. Just take it slow, just do 5 chapters in year 7, and then start from chapter 6. So we start with a new topic in chapter 6, which is not Britain, but slavery. And then we move on to Britain. It ties in quite nicely because chapter 6, then we can remember all the characters from the previous chapters and then move on to the new storyline. Year 9 to 11 is a work in progress, but if we do any more of these talks, I'll keep you updated where we get to. But yes, we'll aim to get to obviously the end of book 2 by probably the end of year 10, and then year 11 focus more on the literature and the civilization papers. We are very much treating Subarani as a reading course. That's obviously not what you have to do, but that's how we've decided to teach it. So we teach it as inductively as possible, just really reading the cartoons, making the characters come to life, bringing out a lot of the pictures rather than the sentences, especially when a new topic is introduced. However, we still do have grammar lessons, and they are essential for the learning of a language such as Latin. We have loved, the students have absolutely loved, and I could not recommend you get it enough, Subarani.com. It has been an essential tool for our students' engagement and for our tracking their progress and for their learning of vocabulary. It has been great. Students get their individual logins, their individual passwords, and as a teacher, you can track all of their progress. As a head of department, I can track all of the Latin classes' progress in their vocabulary. And I can reward them if they go home. I can see their last access on the website. I can see how much they've learned of each chapter. And it's been absolutely great. So for us, we do use it quite a lot. And the students really, really like it. They compete against each other for who gets the highest percentage in what chapter. And it really helps even the lower ability students make that progress in their knowledge of vocabulary. It's not just multiple choice. Students have to type in the correct word in English as well, which is great for their literacy and spelling skills as well. Something else that has been fantastic for us and that I think we all enjoy teaching very much is the civilization element that can really be brought to life in every single lesson. If you don't have time, if you're not teaching Latin, if you start in year 10, you don't have to do a specific civilization lesson on each topic of each chapter. However, in each single story, the civilization element can be brought out and be brought to life to a very high degree. So we have really enjoyed that, and we have planned lessons that allow us to do that. What do you think of this character? What do you think of this aspect of Roman culture? So that has been great also. So teachers and students alike have loved it so far. The one challenge that I will say is that Subarani and grammar and stories get harder faster than the Cambridge Latin course once used to do. So for example, the Cambridge Latin course introduced accusative singular, then it went to nominative plurals, and then accusative plurals. So it was, for example, our students in year 7 would not meet accusative plural, just nominative plural, but not accusative plural. And they would then do accusative plural in year 8. However, Subarani introduces nominative and accusative plural together in chapter 3. So that has been a bit of a learning curve for us because we're not used to teaching them together, and for students to sort of learn when when a word is accusative, when it is nominative. There's more sets of endings to remember. It's 6 rather than 3. But it's a learning curve. We taught it last year. Did they learn it? Yes, they did learn it. Some of them struggled a little bit. So what can we do this year to improve the situation and make sure that they do learn their accusative plural a little bit better, by trying to maintain a reading approach as much as possible, rather than a deductive sort of grammary approach, because that's how we decided to do it. Another difference, for example, is that past tenses, whereas in the Cambridge Latin course are introduced together, so you would have imperfect and perfect together. In Subarani, they're introduced separately, which is different. And I've only just taught imperfect in year 8 the Monday. And they got it. It went really well. So yes, again, we'll see if learning it separately or together will make much of a difference in the long run. I have got a couple of examples for you in case you want to see what a teaching a Subarani lesson is like. And right, so lesson example, I've got a lesson chapter 3, which is Circus Maximus, and I've got it here. So we are, oh, this is a bit annoying. I might not present it just because I think, I don't know, I had a black screen earlier, so I'm not going to do it. So we start with a little starter. This place is called Circus Maximus. What sort of events do you think would happen at this place? So we don't even start with Latin. Really try and draw out the picture. You know, you see lots of people on the stage. What sort of events do you think would happen at this place? What are those? I draw the attention to the picture of them. Horses and a chariot, because you know, they start then getting that it's some sort of race, it's some sort of event, it's quite popular, you know, Sabina and Julia look really happy, etc. So we really do work a lot with double coding and with the pictures as well. Then you've got obviously your learning objectives, you know, this we're meeting for the first time singular and plurals in Latin, so we do tell them, you know, there are going to be plural nouns, but we don't we're not drawing it out too much. Then we do a bit of double coding, because in chapter, this is chapter 3, so there are going to be new words for chapter 3. So the students wouldn't see the English immediately. They would see the Latin, they would see the picture, and then together we come out with a definition for that word. And there's quite a few words here that come up in the cartoons for Circus Maximus. So we go through them, etc., etc. The other day I learned that fur in Romanian means to steal. So there you go. So Romanian students will know full straight away. And then we do a couple of vocabulary games, so that they really do know the words. So they haven't met matrona before, and there's going to be ladies at the circus. And then we really just read it. Sabina per urbem festinat. What is Sabina doing? And then, you know, etc., etc. Who is this new girl? We've never met her before. It's Julia. What does she do? Etc. And then it goes to cartoon number 3. Oh, it's Puella, not Puella anymore. It looks a little bit different. Why do you think that is? Look at the picture. How many girls are there? Etc. etc. So that's just continuing on the sentences. Here you see you've got your plurals there, etc. And then all of the other cartoons. There you go. And then we just got a little plenary there. What were the different groups of people that attended chariot races at the Circus Maximus? So it's not really, oh, what is the plural for matrona? It's just more like, oh, matrona is ladies, UNS is young men, etc., etc. So this is an example of a lesson. I have more if you'd like to see. I have got then here an example of, do I? Yes. Of a different kind of worksheets that you can do. This is from a different lesson in chapter 7, which is De Britannia, which introduces the imperfect. So we've got 3 different sheets. I should have opened them beforehand. Anyway, so they have this sheet is the sort of lower ability sheet. Oh, this is going to take forever now. No, something's happening. Anyway, there are 3 different sheets whereby, oh, there you go. So here you have, there's a conversation between Gisco and Kasia. I love this as well. They try to remember that when they first met, and they have different memories. And that is just so true. You just don't, you know, you think you remember, and then you don't really remember what the other person was wearing. So in the easier sheet, the students just have to pick, you know, for tabates as you were carrying, and for all of the imperfect verbs. And then you can well imagine what's going to happen for a higher level sheet, where they don't, just get a gap for the verb, and in an even higher level sheet, they will just have the full sentence to translate from Latin into English. I'm not going to open all of them because it takes quite a while to open. Something else that I wanted to mention was how we assess for Subarani. So we do assessments in a format that is similar to an EduCast paper, with parts of comprehension questions and parts of translation. This is not because we teach them GCSE at Key Stage 3, Ofsted. We do not do that, I promise you. That's not happening. But because we want to get them used to a paper format that they will encounter later assessments and later in their lives as Latin students. So we have comprehension questions and the translation, and we have also added a story section where students need to remember facts about Sabina and the other characters. And I'm going to show you now just a brief example of a year 7 assessment on, this is our spring assessment at the end of chapter 3. So you see there are a few Latin sentences here. This is written by us, but using words that the students know and characters that the student know. It's just sort of placing the words in slightly different places. A few comprehension questions that are multiple choice. And then we go to, we always have a derivation question because that does come up at GCSE. So we really need to spell out what derivation means. Some of our students don't quite grasp that just yet in year 7. So you don't need to write the meaning of the word urbem, an English word that comes from the Latin word. It sounds the same. So hopefully they will come up with urban. And then we have a translation paragraph. I would say that students do find this part harder, obviously, than the comprehension. And the lower ability students and less confident students just get stuck. And I see this all the way to GCSE, you know, when they open a paper, they whiz through the comprehension questions and they get a big paragraph and they lose confidence. They don't want to do it because it's too long. But we keep this element because this is Latin. You know, Latin is big paragraphs of things. We don't want to lose that element of teaching them how to translate a paragraph. So we really, when there's a bigger story in the textbook, we do want to teach them how to, you know, break it down, go from the beginning to the end to the middle, etc., etc. No, cat, go away. Sorry. Then we have, this was the example of the assessment, and these are the questions. We have a couple of grammar questions. What are these two groups of people? So, you know, hopefully they remember the senators and the young men. A couple of other grammar questions, and these are the questions about the story. What is the name of this place? What event took place here? Why had Faustus lost money, etc. And then we have a few translations of English into Latin. We always have that element for the really high ability students. Something else I wanted to show you as well, I'm not sure how I'm doing for time, but I'm almost done, I think, is an example of a rubric, which we use for marking work of students when there is no specific grade. For example, you know, if in chapter 1 we take in their books when they do the story Lucilius, when they translate it in their books. So the ones that you see on the left, they're obviously different in all schools, but there are levels that students are placed on according to their key stage 2 data. So that's 5 for us. And sort of the colours are sort of traffic light system that explains, you know, what can students do at that level, and is that good that they can do that? So, you know, the very basic thing at chapter 1 for us would be to translate ego to and names in isolation. Then the next level would be to translate ego and to with actions, translate names. The next level up, not gonna read it all, but you know, you get the idea. Translate a range of words adding the, including ego and to with actions and names, etc., etc. So the higher the level, you know, hopefully they will be able to do all those things. We have made a rubric for each chapter, and also a rubric for the story and civilization element, whereby, you know, students can name the characters. Students know where Sabina lives and where, you know, Katia is from, etc. And then one other thing that I wanted to talk about, because, you know, that's with my head of department hat on, is data. So have students made progress? Have students not made progress? Because, you know, we can sit here and chat all we like about Subarani, but have students understood what's going on? So I only have one set of data, which is the set of data from the whole of year 7 cohort from last year. And there are a few considerations to be made on this data. First of all, it was the first ever time teaching this new course. I was saying to Will earlier that even when I'm teaching the year 7 lessons for the second time this year, I am so much more confident in teaching them. So the first couple of years are always going to be, you know, a bit of an experiment to see how you get on. And my confidence and my bringing out the characters, bringing out the story, you know, focusing on the grammar elements that they will find difficult, I'm doing a lot better this year than I was doing last year. So it was the first time ever teaching a new course, planning new lessons and producing new assessments. There were 2 months of lockdown in between, as we all know. And since then, some lessons and resources have been reviewed to ensure better understanding and progress. So what happened with our students? Students achieving at or above their level was 50.5%, which is quite a good number for us. So they were at their level or above their level, so working higher than what they're supposed to. Then we had 20.7% of students that were working slightly below their level, almost at their level, but not quite there yet. And then 28.8% students working below their level. Now, I would like this percentage to be a lot smaller. I don't know, almost 30% is quite a lot of students that have not quite met the targets that they should have been meeting. But again, you know, see the considerations above, and all of that happened, and the fact that it was a new course, and yeah, we were just trying it out. What I would say is that, interestingly, around 30% of the students at higher level have performed significantly below their level. So the students that were in the top 2 brackets are the ones that performed below, or well, 30% of them. So my question, but this is just, you know, just a rhetorical question really, is this Subarani, or is it a wider problem with, you know, level and target setting that happens with teaching students in state schools in this country? But I don't think we have an answer to that, or maybe not. I think I do, but there's another forum for that kind of discussion. So I think I am done. I don't know, I have no clue how long I spoke for. So thank you for listening. And please let me know if you have any questions. You can pop them in the chat or unmute. I'll be happy to answer. Oh, actually, no, I have some conclusions. Hold your horses. Subarani has been a breath of fresh air for students and teachers alike. Many elements that bring ancient Rome and Latin to life. There's loads of them throughout the course. It can be taught at many levels with different foci according to the type of school and the type of context. The civilization, the story element, and Subarani.com have contributed greatly to students' engagement. There are some difficult grammar elements, but there can be different approaches according to the context. My, again, rhetorical question is, do all students need to know that the ablative is called ablative in chapter 6? I would say, no, they don't, especially at, you know, lower ability students. But overall, I 100% would recommend switching to Subarani, or sticking with it if you have already switched to Subarani. Thank you very much.
Otti, thanks very much. Do we have questions from any of us right now on what Otti's shared just there?
Oh, I spoke a lot, sorry.
It's all right, Otti, all was good. Any questions right now? No? Okay, let's crack on then. Sara, over to you in that case. And Otti, thanks. Thanks so much for that. Sara.
Okay. My screen. Right, hopefully you can see that. Is that right? Can you see my presentation?
That's good. Spot on.
Lovely. Okay, well, my name is Sara. I'm head of classics at Trinity School in Croydon. And so a little bit about us, a very different context to Otti School. We actually, weirdly, we start in year 6 instead of year 7. Not sure why that is. But yeah, it's been interesting teaching the year 6s. So we're boys' school, but we're co-ed in the 6th form. We do have fairly high attaining students. So the majority of our GCSE results for Latin, for example, would be 7s to 9s. We have the odd 6 here and there. I don't want to jinx it for this year. And you know, kind of similar at A level. In year 6, we teach classics with absolutely no language. So we've just chosen all of our favourite bits of classics, from Greek mythology to, you know, Olympic Games to philosophy. And it's just our chance to sort of PR the subject for a year, because we've got absolutely low stakes in terms of what we need to teach them. So that's quite nice. Then they can pick up Latin in year 7. Well, they have to pick up Latin in year 7. At the end of year 7, they are able to drop Latin. Year 9, they can start Greek, but it's off timetable. And then GCSE, we offer Latin and Greek. And for A level, we offer Latin, Greek, and classical civilization. That does kind of impact the way we use Subarani, because I'd say our focus is mainly on the language. Obviously, I love bringing in all the civilization stuff, but in terms of assessment, we're kind of focusing more on language. Our numbers, they're okay. I mean, to be honest, I'd like them to be a little bit better. We've got about 20 for GCSE Latin. For GCSE Greek, I think just because it's off timetable, it's a little bit tough to get them on board. So it varies between, say, 2 and 10. And then for 6th form, it really varies again. This year, our lowest 6, we have 8 class civers, 3 Latinists and 1 Greek student. So yeah, it's kind of one of my long-term goals to sort of try and build that up a little bit, which kind of relates to taking Subarani. So why Subarani? I'm a fairly new teacher, same year as Otti really. This is my 6th year of teaching. I already got bored of the CLC after just a few years really. We used the Cambridge Latin course before. We found that there was high engagement with book 1. I've got no issues with book 1. It just sort of tapered off in book 2 by the time we were talking about candlesticks and cupboards. I just the content just felt a little bit out of date with current times, you know, when you're saying it's not proper for a man to wear a dress, and then I have to say, but actually it's fine, guys. So, you know, things like that, and also some of the some of the presentation of different characters as well. Also the digital content. I mean, we used to use all the videos and stuff, but it was more laughing at them than really, I mean, using it in a good way. And I just think with our subject, we need to fight, you know, when we're competing against the sciences and all these high-tech things going on, and then we put up a video that looks like it was made decades ago. It just does feel a little bit sort of not cool. If Latin can ever be cool, that is. And yeah, also just, you know, the representation of people from other places, I think some of it was a little bit dubious in the Cambridge Latin course, and just, you know, having characters that weren't just kind of white rich men around, or sort of, you know, pretty women pleasing people, just with a bit more agency was what we were kind of lacking. So Subarani, when that came along, you know, we really liked the sort of look and feel of it. It feels quite fresh. We love the fact that it's set in the Suburra, sort of busy district in Rome, where you've actually got lots of different social classes kind of interacting. If you just open any one of the pages in the textbook, you know, students from Croydon can see people who look like them, which is a massive thing for me. As a non-white classics teacher, that's very high up my agenda. Hopefully it should be high up everyone's agenda. And so, yeah, it was just really, it just felt like we, you know, our responsibility to kind of think about those issues. As Otti mentioned, you know, there's a higher profile of female characters. It's really nice that we start off with Sabina as the main character, and also actually really good for us in a boys' school, because I think quite a lot of the time they just don't know anything about women. So just trying to get that in earlier, that, you know, it's not necessarily all about makeup, etc., is quite nice. Just having feisty characters. I think there was, you know, there's one point where they defend themselves against some sort of annoying men who are saying things to them. It's just nice to have those kind of strong female characters in there. Engaging storylines, I'm not going to exaggerate if I kind of say that, you know, writing the schemes of work over the last few years, I have genuinely myself wanted to know what happens next. So massive credit to the story writing. It's just so fantastic. I may have even had a little bit of a tear in my eye when I sort of looked forward to what happens in book 2. No spoilers though. But yeah, just really, really good in terms of kind of being engaging for our students. We really love the digital resources. There's just so much to use. You know, there's kind of grammar exercises for every chapter. There's the vocabulary trainer, as Otti mentioned, and also there's loads of worksheets and stuff online, and really efficient kind of sharing from other teachers as well. So just all in all, it works well. And I have to say one thing that's really great, so thank you, Will, and everyone, just if I ask a question, everyone just gets back to me straight away, so that's really, really helpful in terms of, you know, sorting out glitches or issues, and also just, you know, general long-term aim that we have of hopefully one day raising numbers at GCSE and A-level. Ideally, we would want to get in a position where all 3 A-level subjects are definitely guaranteed every year, and I hope that one of the main ways we can do that is sort of engagement in the lower years. So that's why Subarani. In terms of our schemes of work, we were actually one of the trial schools. So now this is our 3rd year of using Subarani. So it's now rolled out to years 7 to 9. Our curriculum time, year 7 and 8, we have 2 35-minute lessons a week and 1 30-minute homework. Year 9, either it's the same as that, or depending on their their timetable options, they might have 3 35-minute lessons a week. So we actually teach sort of different quantities to the same year group. And also the same amount of homework. So that's the time available. And then what we cover in each year, it took us a while to get this quite sort of settled down, really. I think the first time I wrote the year 7 scheme of work, I was a bit over ambitious. So chapters 1 to 7 in year 7. And I've just included some things that take us away from Subarani during the year. So in year 7, we sort of break off a little bit to do the Cambridge Ovid competition. If you haven't heard of that, it's really fun. So that's October, November. Year 8, we cover chapters 8 to 14. We break off to do a little curse project in November where they make curses when it relates to one of the plots. And then we do a little bit of a selling for our Greek for about a week or so in January. And in year 9, a bit of a caveat, it's our first year of teaching it in year 9, but hoping to cover 15 to 22, again, breaking off in January just to do a bit of a GCSE taster. So that's the rough pace of it. I would say each chapter takes us about 3 or 4 weeks to get through. But, you know, it's quite, I suppose there's more grammar. The chapters are just longer than the Cambridge Latin course. So you get more layers of grammar relating to a similar thing in a chapter, perhaps, than in the Cambridge Latin course. So it's just a different pacing, really. Now, GCSE, we normally use a Taylor Cullen textbook to teach kind of the grammar. So we used to sort of switch from Cambridge Latin course in year 9 to then switching to Taylor. To be honest, I'm still going to decide on that as to what we do. We're going to probably assess a little bit later this year to decide whether we're going to stick with Subarani to go all the way up to GCSE or not. And in terms of how we use the resources, all the students have a physical textbook to take home with them. We tend to use the website for revision, either at home, or we do revision lessons using sort of IT stuff to get them online in lessons. So it's just really nice, you know, when you sort of, I don't know, maybe run out of ideas, at least you know you can always just kind of take them for an IT lesson, and if you're having a busy week, so it's very helpful to have that. In terms of how it's gone down with the students, they absolutely love the stories. They genuinely, you know, unprompted said to me last year, we really love the stories in the book, and they really want to know what happens. Quite a few of them really like using the online website. They like the fact that I can actually see their progress, and I will sit there in a lesson sometimes kind of begging them on to say, so-and-so's done 80%, so-and-so's done 90%, so that's quite nice. When we do the Civ lessons, they really do enjoy the historical sources. There's quite a few of actual excerpts from ancient authors that you can use to develop kind of, you know, those, I suppose, interpreting skills, which is nice. It feels like there's more of that than in the Cambridge Latin course. On the flip side, some find some of the stories and the comprehensions a bit long. I would say that's probably because we have 35-minute lessons. And, you know, when you do a starter and then you've got a main activity and then you need to go through it, you know, you don't really have longer than 15 minutes to leave them doing something, by which time if they're doing a straight translation, they won't get further than about 5 lines. So, you know, it's just all about kind of thinking about how you're going to approach those stories and not necessarily just translating them, but doing different things with them. This is a bit of a bugbear. I don't know why. Some just cannot cope with remembering a password and logging onto the website. So there's a lot of issues with that. I'll talk about that a bit later on. Right, staff feedback. I think, as Otti mentioned, you know, you can get a bit bored with what you're teaching, I suppose, at times when you've been doing it for years. And do you know what? It actually makes a real difference, the fact that we love the stories too. It just changes the way that we are in lessons, I think, if the staff are engaged with the stories. So that's been really positive. We like the look and feel of the textbook. We like the digital resources that are really helpful. I think one of the key things for me this year is it's much more tailor-made for loads of valuable discussions about gender, race and social status. One of our school aims this year is to focus on issues of inequality. So it was just really fantastic to be able to say, look what we've done in classics. And all of our schemes of work have a column on the right hand side where for every passage, I will just jot down what kind of issues you can bring up. And the fact that there's something for every week in there is just a kind of testament to how easy it is to kind of have these discussions. Not to say that you can't with other courses, but it just seems to just, you know, be there for the taking, really. So that's really nice. resetting passwords is a bit of an issue, as I said. The students get a temporary passwords and then they get sort of permanent passwords, but they're not ones that they make up themselves. I've asked them to write it down. I mean, short of getting them tattooed on their face, I'm not sure what else I can do. But yeah, there's always one or two every time I set a test to say, Miss, can you reset my password? So that's a bit of a pain. I think that says a lot more about our students than the course, though. I think we just need to teach them a bit better how to manage themselves. So being very honest, initially it did have a negative impact on our numbers. I think this is partly to do with the fact that we just didn't really know what we were doing with it for the first year. Through timetabling quirks, I was head of department in the first year of teaching it, but I wasn't actually teaching the course, so I wasn't able to support there. And then I think everyone else, you know, you had to kind of invest time into it to make it work. And I don't think we had the capacity to do that year. This was remedied, though, in the second year of teaching. I do feel, as Otti mentioned as well, we just are more confident. We know what to pick out. We know who the characters are. We know what grammar points the passage is getting at. And so that's really good. And actually, the difference in take-up between first and second year, there was about 30 student difference from the first year of teaching to the second year of teaching, which was amazing. I would say I've spent a lot of time creating resources. I think part of that was being a trial school and just having not many other people to share with in the first year of teaching. That's getting better, but of course we're a little bit ahead of most people. So I'm waiting for people to do, you know, lots of book 2 resources. I know there's really great sharing going on though, and more things are cropping up, so that's good. Also just planning how to approach stories. We've become a bit complacent with knowing what to do with a story, but actually if you've got a really huge story and you know you need to think, okay, I need to get this covered in this lesson, what am I going to do, what's my gap fill sheet going to focus on, or you know, how are we going to do this reading comprehension or whatever it is. So just being aware of that, maybe taking a little bit of time. And I have found it tricky to write summer exams just because there weren't any extra passages available. So I'm not the best at creative writing in Latin. I will hold my hand up and say that, especially when you've got a busy year and with all the tags going on with other classes. So I don't think I wrote the best exams for it last year. I think we'll mention that there would be some extra passages available and that aren't in the textbook, and I think that will really help moving forward. I've scribbled some others down as we were talking, actually. So yeah, there's quite a lot of classical civilization stuff in there. I think maybe you might find it overwhelming if you start, because you might not know what to choose. I would say, you know, as a school that's focused more on the language, we don't cover all the background in every chapter. We just choose, say, 1-2 things in each chapter, but then try and bring it in when we're doing stories. And as Otti said, you know, the pictures are so rich, there's so much you can bring out, so we try and do it as we're going along as well. But it's just kind of deciding your goals and prioritizing what you're going to focus on might be a bit of a challenge as well. In terms of student progress, massively difficult to figure this out. I don't have as much data as Otti, probably because I don't need to prepare it because I work at a private school. But yes, it's really difficult to exactly isolate what's been going on, because obviously they've been through so much, lockdown learning, etc. A lot of our students, we have to retrain them on how to remember to do the homework in the first place. So there's basics that haven't gone on there. We have just done the chapter 1, 8 and 15 tests for the various year groups. I've put the averages there. That's not really telling you much because, you know, maybe our tests are really easy, who knows? But, you know, some progress is being made somewhere, so that's good. We tend to focus on the language in those tests. So I think we are happy if we have an average of over 70% for a test that we write. More widely speaking, key wins with respect to GCSE and beyond. As I said, loads more discussions about these really important issues just happening organically in lessons. Some of the things about the order of the grammar we find quite beneficial. I think there's arguments to be made anyway, with, you know, both ways with all the grammar. It's interesting that by the end of year 8, our students know all the cases. By year 9, they've already done indirect statements by this point in the year. We teach OCR GCSE, and I actually think the indirect statements is probably the hardest grammar point for the GCSE, and a lot of my students don't fully understand it until right before their exams. So it's quite nice to expose them to that a little bit earlier. It's quite nice as well because some of the passages are actually designed for analysis like a GCSE set text. So there's little kind of effects going on, literary effects going on that you can pick out. And the strong characterization is also really useful for this, because you can ask them questions that you might have on a, say, a GCSE set text, just to get them thinking in that mindset. So that's been really good. And just, I suppose, you know, the students just enjoy reading. I think it can hide some of the difficulties of, or to, you know, sort of reduce some of the annoyance when you can't translate something. If you want to know the plot, it can help you kind of tackle that harder grammar and just be more up for it, if you're interested in the story. So I think that's been really, really helpful. Oh, that's it. Brilliant. Yeah, so yeah, I was going to say, if anyone wants to sort of ask to see schemes of work or anything, please drop me a line, or if you want to ask any other questions, obviously you can ask now, but if you want to get in touch, that's my email address. That's it, really. So yeah, does anyone have any questions?
Becky, you said just as Sana was getting going and just as Otti had finished, you put in the chat there, do you have a sense of what students particularly enjoy about Subarani? Otti, Sana, do you want to, I mean, you both slightly touched on that anyway, but have you got more to say on that, in front of what the students, how they respond to it?
I think, yeah, I think it was what I was saying really about the stories. They want to know what happens next. It's all very fast paced. There's loads and loads of action going on all the time. It's quite dramatic. They quite like, I think, the emotional nature of it. Not all the stories are happy stories, and so they find that very gripping. And so they like that. I think they also like the range of characters. I think they can relate to the characters as well, as Otti was saying. I don't know if you want to add to that, Otti.
No, ditto everything that you said, really. It's just, they just love finding out what happens, you know, to Faustus. I'd, you know, draw it from the beginning. I just say, oh, look at Faustus. Someone is writing on the wall, Faustus est forward. Oh, I wonder what that is. And then later, you know, when he loses his money and the senators start chasing him down with a big slave, they love it. They just like watching a Netflix series, but it's in Latin on a textbook.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, I think that's the main draw for us. And the vocabulary, learning the vocabulary on Subarani.com. Miss, when are we going to the IT room next?
Thanks, guys. Thanks. So, Otti, Sana, you teaching quite different situations in some ways, but you both start in year 7. Sarah, we're going to head over to you next then, and Sarah teaches in a different situation again, so I hope this will be useful to everybody. So,
okay,
thanks, Sarah.
let's give this a try. Sure. Okay, so yeah, so I teach also in a comprehensive school, but in this tiny corner of North Hertfordshire, near Royston, if you think A10 going up towards Cambridge, is it's an upper school. So we get our kids in year 9. So there is no real chances of starting early. I'm a one-person department, so classics at Freman, it's me, with the occasional help of Will. Thank you very much. And so what we do is that in year 9, we only have about a quarter, a bit more. So normally we have an 8 form entry. So then we would have 2 groups doing Latin. And some years like this year, we have 9. So then we get 3 groups doing Latin. So between 60 and 90 students in year 9 do Latin. And then in GCSE, it tends to vary, as you say, between 13 and 25, very often obviously related. The years we have 3 groups, then we tend to get more students for GCSE, and the years with 60, we tend to get more 13. I mean, I have to say that we used to get more normally, but when we moved to the 1 to 9 GCSE, the school decided to drop from 5 to 4 options for GCSE, and that had a real impact on Latin, because kids that would have done it, when they just had to choose, then eventually very often they didn't do Latin. And we don't have an A-level anymore. We haven't, again, when AS disappeared from the curriculum, it was very difficult to recruit. Now, what we do then is in year 9, we have a 2-week timetable. So in year 9, they get 4 lessons a cycle, so they get 2 hours a week. And in GCSE, in year 10 and in year 11, they get 5 hours between the 2 weeks, so 2 and 3. And we do EDUCAS exam board. So that's a bit of background on the school. So the pace I'm going to give is very different. Well, let's start with Suburani. I mean, I'm saying much less, but it's basically pretty much the same that everybody else has said. Partly it was personal. Much as I love the Chapter course, and I really, really love it, and I have enjoyed teaching it. I'm maybe one of the few people who actually enjoyed teaching book 3. I was also a little bit bored of it. I mean, every year, come September, those first few lessons, I just thought, you know, I'm going to downboard them in front of them, and then what? So it was just such a good moment for refreshing my own teaching, and then also the content. And of course, what everybody else was saying is so much more up to date. I mean, it has come in such a fantastic moment when so many discussions have been there on gender, on race, and also just really reflecting much more what we do know about the Romans now and what the makeup of Roman society would have been like. So it's perfect for that, and it's perfect to start all sorts of discussions. I really like that it's a reading course. I don't think I would have changed had it not been a reading course, because that's something I think is just vital to the way I teach. And of course, I just love the team. And what you were saying, Sana, is absolutely true. It's so responsive. So you are all so geared to help us to deliver what we want to deliver. And it's such a good, you know, working team between you and us that, you know, had to be a really strong reason. So just what I have covered so far. I mean, I also was one of the trial schools, but because I have so little time, I just go, as I'm going to show in the next slide, I got at top speed. So my year 11s were the first year to start Suburani, and they were so excited when they knew that there would be trial, you know, guinea pigs. They just loved it. And they are the only ones who had done all the language I would cover for GCSE. So we've done up to chapter 26, and now we are picking bits and bobs from the other chapters. But I'm going to try not to kill what happened. So don't worry, I'm not going to talk about the contents. Year 10, we are finishing halfway through chapter 18. So that's my second round with this bigger book 2. And in year 9, I'm in chapter 4, just finishing. So this is the 3rd time I teach it. Now, the thing is, with lockdown, and also I have a personal problem, and I just had to go back to Spain for a while, and Will took over my teaching, which was great. But, you know, I haven't managed to teach, you know, physically teach the books. So there are some chapters that now when I look at my teaching, I suddenly hear my voiceover because, you know, I had COVID and I was away, and, you know, all those things. So I don't feel really on top of the book at all. So that's my pacing, which is going to look so different. So this will be useful for people who are starting year 9s and 10s, but probably the ones of you with more time will be absolutely horrified. So in year 9, I go all the way to chapter 14. So as you see in the first term, you know, between half term, that's what I call autumn 1 and 2, chapters 1 and 3, and then 4 to 6. But, you know, it's a bit push. I don't really think I'm going to finish chapter 6 before Christmas. And then I move slower because the chapters become longer. So 7 and 8. So by Easter, I would like to get to chapter 10. And then by the summer half term towards 12. And then we have at the school something we call a change, which is basically we start our GCSE classes. So the year 9s, you know, by the time they know they're not doing your subject and they become really disengaged, then we break them up and start the GCSEs. So we get more or less to chapter 14. That's what has happened in the last 2 years. And I don't know whether it's going to change at all now that hopefully we'll have them for the whole year. And then in year 10, I just go all the way to chapter 26, which is what covers all the language for EDUCAS GCSE by May half term. Okay, so again, ish 15, 17, 18, and save. That's what I'm doing at the moment. So that gives you a little bit of an idea of what I do. I don't know how I go to chapter 25 to 20. I think I'm missing a 6 there in summer 1. So that will change also depending on what's happening with the SIV, because I try, and that's something really useful. You were saying how you can teach so much of the SIV you need for the exam as you just do your normal chapters, because there is so much embedded into it. So then, depending on what the civilization is, I would just change my schemes of work a little bit to give it a bit of extra time. So at the moment, a lot of my SIV, I'm doing daily life. So chapter 17 and 18 in Pompeii have lots and lots of stuff. So I would slow down there. But next year, with my current year 9s, we are going back to entertainment. So the chapter when we have gladiators, I would delay much more there and a bit less in the other chapter. So, you know, that's played a little bit. And what I try to do normally, I used to do with the Cambridge Latin course, is that in half term I do the optional literature from Educast, just to give the kids an introduction to lit. And also that some of them really like it, and then they can sit that exam, and some of them won't like it, so they use it as a, you know, starting to learn about lit. And then in year 11 I teach the literature component, and then I use the final chapters to give them some practice of language. So at the moment, for instance, we are doing chapter 29, because the stories are very relevant to the characters, and I manipulate the text. So for instance, I may give them a text in which I have translated the bits with a really difficult grammar they don't need for their GCSE, but I leave in Latin all the ones that would be a good practice for them. So they don't lose the story, and they practice, but they don't have to do anything that is really frightening. So that's more or less how I do it. So I go very, very quickly. And so my experience, what I have enjoyed so far, I really love the course, like the two of you were saying. I mean, the book is absolutely beautiful. And, you know, the stories are just so good. And I mean, I could spend hours if I had more time. The amount of time I would spend, you know, getting all the stuff that you had piled into the pictures. I know I haven't used all the potential at all of the book, and I hope that as I, you know, do it more, I will be able to get into using other aspects of it. You know, pick and mix more from the background, from the civilization, and so on. It's true there is a lot of new material to prepare, but I'm really enjoying that, because I was quite bored in a way of having everything so ready. And also, I think lots of the things I had prepared some years ago were very much on the way I used to teach some years ago. So it's nice to prepare new material, thinking on with other teaching strategies and other things. And I really like the electronic materials I have. I think they have a lot of potential to make our life so much easier. And also for the kids not to feel that Latin is not often things that they see in other subjects. So I think that's very good. Now, what is a learning curve? As you were saying, Otti, they grow very quickly, especially the first 4 chapters. They just give all the nominative and accusatives, all the genders, singular, plural, and the neuter, and they just go a big, you know. So I'm working on that. I'm trying to adjust my timings. I'm trying to think what extra material to use. You know, also to decide how important it is that they actually learn it. Absolutely, because, you know, I lived for so many years teaching the neuter, almost not teaching it. So, you know. And also learning to make the most of the electronic materials part, because you keep on adding more things, which is great, but, you know, you just have to run up and making sure. So at the moment, I'm just putting teaching time aside to teach them how to use the materials, you know, like also to remember the passwords, to write them somewhere, to know how to move from the active book to the activities and games, and remember that they need to move from one to the other, and that, you know, I think it's worth doing it, because once they know how to do it, then it's great. Okay, I sometimes miss a little bit, if, you know, for the all Cambridge Latin course, you every now and again had a practice in the language that actually took you back. And you could say, especially if you are a bit lost for a homework or a revision thing, you go, okay, that one was about that thing. And, you know, it could be a bit, you know, nice to have that. But on the other hand, for instance, going back to all the sorting exercises can be really good to support that learning without us having to do a lot of extra, or they can do it on their own time. They are really good homeworks. The sorting exercises also now, you can track them in the same way that you can track the vocabulary. So it's very good to know if they are doing them or not. And it gives them a very quick feeling of achievement. As soon as they get it, they realize the pattern, they start doing really well, and they feel really proud of themselves. So I think that's a very good one. And again, it's just a question of thinking how to incorporate those things, because even with the All Cambridge Latin course, even when using the website and so on, there were lots of things that you couldn't do or they wouldn't do independently. So I just feel I need to rechange how I teach and plan the lessons to create a space so they can use the electronic materials more independently, and they can use them for homework, and they can take work off me. And, you know, I have made that into one of my performance management targets this year, you know, how to learn to use all that stuff in a more effective way. And what else is here? Experiences, they really like the characters. They really engage with them. I mean, I was a bit surprised how much they love Faustus and how sad they were in the chapter when we stopped seeing Faustus. Yeah, as some of you were saying, they get really engaged with the idea that he's a gambler. And oh my God, one of them the other day said, but how is he gaming if his daughter is going to be sold into slavery? You know, they were just, so, you know, they really engage with that. They respond really, really well to the illustrations. They get very engaged with that, which I think is great because they are learning almost without realizing. I mean, the other day I was doing, you know, the salutatio, and I mean, let's face it, teaching salutatio, morning greeting, and, you know, patrons and clients, this never has been one of the most, you know, exciting things we ever had to teach. But with this story, perfect. They get it, and, you know, it's all good. What they find, the language exercises can be a bit hard because there's a lot of vocabulary they don't remember. So, yeah, one has to just persevere with them, and just sometimes, I mean, you're adding quite a lot now with a bit of differentiation, and that's really helpful. As all of us said at the beginning, they struggle a bit to use the electronic materials beyond the absolute basics, but, you know, perseverance, and we'll get there with them. My year 10s and 11s are really good with them, so it gets there. And there is a lot of vocabulary. I don't know whether you feel that, perhaps because you're going slower, you don't feel that so much. But because I have to cover so many chapters, I don't have a lot of time to teach them the vocabulary separately. And suddenly in chapter 2, they have something like 10 or 15 new verbs. I don't know, perhaps I'm exaggerating, but it feels a bit like that. So, you know, you have to, again, find moments where you can do that, because if they get lost with vocabulary, then they disengage quite a lot, because then every sentence becomes quite difficult. I have even less about progress than you have. Okay. Because, well, for a variety of reasons, because I don't teach Key Stage 3. I know we start in year 9, but because we are an upper school, we leave the Key Stage 3 to the middle school. So we are quite free on that one. We don't have to worry about levels or anything like Key Stage 2. So they do more or less in year 9, but I'm not particularly worried. I just, you know, look at assessments and think, oh yeah, that sounds like somebody who gets it. I haven't done you know, we did a language paper last year in year 10, didn't we, Will? And results were, you know, it was a paper I had adapted from an old level 2. I did some bobs to make it into an Educas 1 to 9. And I felt they were slightly behind of what I would have expected at that time. But that could be so much because of lockdown. And I think that's really much more because of lockdown than because the course in any possible way.
And I
we
think
are going
so
to do a mock. Yeah,
sorry, go on.
go for it. No,
Well, I
no,
was
go.
just going to say, I think that's the first time that they had done a sort of a mock pass paper, and quite a lot of the things that were coming up in that was that, you know, they didn't. These comprehension questions are retranslations, aren't they? And so they wouldn't translate everything that was needed, and so they'd miss a mark because they'd missed a word. So it was a little bit of learning of style about how to approach those things.
Yeah, and I think that's partly of the problem with lockdown, because otherwise they would have done a few papers with me in the classroom, but we didn't have classroom time to do it.
Yeah,
So,
and also, I mean, we've started putting in place now practice assessments every sort of 3 or 4 chapters, but when those guys went through, those didn't exist. So they just hadn't had that practice. I think those practice assessments that are going in should help to address that, I think, because they're very much built in the style of the OCR and EDUCAS.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, and so I just don't, you know, I only have a bit of gut feeling, partly because, you know, it's a new course, partly because also we have so few past papers to give them to find out what they are. And I've been away quite a lot, so I'm feeling a bit. I mean, I know that by the end of book, so things like case extensions, they are really good at them. I think verbs are really well addressed in Suburani. There's plenty of opportunity for them to feel really confident about verbs. And it's very good also that the future comes so early, because they get lots and lots of practice of the future, and they are very good at that. I'm not so, I really don't know how sure they are in participles and passive and subordination and all those really things, because but that's just me. I think it's the first year I do it. I have only done it once, and partly because I wasn't in the classroom very often. So, but you know, I just don't think there is any reason why they shouldn't be making the same progress that they would have done with the Cambridge Writing Course, say. Which by the way, if people are coming from sort of similar backgrounds to me, I have always taught up to GCSE with the Cambridge Writing Course, and I'm planning definitely to teach up to GCSE with Suburani. I never use any extra. I mean, I occasionally pinch a few sentences from Taylor or something like that if I need a homework, but I just feel that, you know, there is more than enough for me to teach them up to what they need for GCSE and get good grades from it. And I think that's me.
Thanks, Sarah. Thanks. Yeah, I mean, it's just maybe worth saying there for all of us that the course finishes the EDUCAS language content at chapter 26. And then if you're going on for OCR, the OCR material is in chapters 27 through to 32. So your students are finished the EDUCAS language material roughly after sort of five terms.
Yeah.
So it's the pace is pretty quick, and my guess is that because the participles, that stuff you've got there in book 2, participles, passive, subordinates, that's coming in just at the end there, just before 26, isn't the last sort of 5-6 chapters. They just haven't had the consolidation on that.
No, and that's what I need to work with the other chapters, because you know, in the other stories, if you manipulate them sufficiently well for EDUCAS, they can get plenty of practice and still enjoy following the plot and following what happens to the characters. What you have to do to a certain extent is don't present them with the really hard things they don't need to know, like future infinitives or
and it would be good for us to write more stories in that sort of, you know, that level of 25, 26, so that you could do that, right? If you're doing, but
consider that also, because it's a reading course, the kids want to know what happens at the end. So I don't want to cheat them out of that. I just want to, you know, rework some of the stories so they can get to the end too.
So the ideal for you would be if we rewrote those last 6 chapters, 27 through to 32.
No, don't worry, I can do it.
Okay, has anyone...
I was going to say, because I don't have A level, but people do have A level. I think it's really good to have more difficult subjects. I mean, the final stories could also be used as a transition into A level or as a revision, a bit like book 5 used to work in the old days. They have that level of difficulty for alien scenes that I think can be very useful for people teaching A level. Once you've got the course, you may as well use it.
So thank you. How are we doing for questions? We've run on a little bit, but I think it's been so good to hear from all three of you, because you've had so many interesting and useful things to say. Sarah, do you want to stop sharing, and then we can see
sorry,
everybody
I forgot about it.
and see, do we have questions from anybody for Sara and Sana and Otti? No, everyone's thinking, I've got marking to do, I've got lessons to prepare. Okay, well, then thanks, guys. Thanks so much for sharing your situations and how you found it and what's been working and what the challenges are. And I mean, it's so interesting listening to you guys. And it does make me think, actually, that it'd be really useful for those of us who've been using the course for 2 or 3 years now to maybe get together a little bit and sort of share. Actually, it would be good if these things were made and these other things were, were organised, so that I've jotted down some notes there of the things you've said, well, I could do with a bit more of this or that. But that sort of thing, if we get organised about it, we could share the workload for that, I think, couldn't we? Okay, well, guys, thanks very much. And thanks everybody for giving up your time this evening. And as always, if you have any questions about anything, well, you can get in touch with us, or you can get in touch now with Otti and Sana and Sara as well. So, all right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for having us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Take care.
Cheers, guys.